So today we are talking onboarding and employer branding. We know onboarding actually, we take time to think about it, is absolutely crucial to ensuring you have happy and productive employees. So really need to do as much as we can to make sure that experience is as good as possible. Which is why I'm absolutely delighted to have Noel with me today. How you doing, Noel?
Very good, thanks, Chris. Very good. I'm absolutely excited to be here today as well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks for joining. It's great to see your face again and chat about this. Let's get on with it. Let's just have a bit of an intro to those people. God forbid, not those people who aren't so familiar about yourself and what you do.
Well, yeah, those who haven't met me or just seen the beard walking around the odd award event and goes, "Who's that idiot?" My name's Noel Thomas. I am the creative director of CA3 and Eli Onboarding. And CA3 is a company I set up with a couple of friends nearly 12 years ago now, which makes me feel even older than I am. A lovely, fantastic employer brand agency that helps organizations engage with talent through fabulously compelling communications. But obviously, one of the reasons we're here today, or the main one, is to talk about onboarding. In about 6 years, we developed a onboarding technology product called Eli, and onboarding now seems to seep into nearly every day of my working life, really, and it's something I guess we're all very passionate about.
So let's start off with talking about kind of bad onboarding experiences, because I think that can vary. Some people's bad onboarding experience may be actually someone else's good when it comes to the delivery of onboarding. So, and from the conversations you've had and the world you're very much in, what is that kind of range when it comes to
Mm.
bad onboarding?
Well, as you say, I mean, one person's, Battenberg cake is another person's sponge cake, really, isn't it? I remember talking to the lovely guys at Leap recently. And we were a holiday in Skegness versus a trip to the Seychelles. You might prefer Skegness for all we know. I think where most organisations are at the moment is most organisations will have some form of compliance in place because they have to in order for someone to start. But I think even that can be done badly. And I think for me, what is bad onboarding is where nothing is ready. The new hire is never communicated too well. That there's no consistent process, even if that's only the compliance element we're talking about. And there's just no real communication between offer acceptance and day one. I think, the big thing for us about onboarding is placing the new hire at the heart of your process or experience, no matter what it is, even if it's only compliance. Um, and no one likes to be filling in hundreds and hundreds of forms, not knowing what's going to happen on day one, if someone's going to meet them, where they're meant to go, what time they're meant to, turn up. So there's some very basic things, that you should have in place, I would say, for any role within your organization. And if you're failing on that, then you're failing that new hire, and you're ultimately not setting them up for success. You're probably setting them up to think about, maybe this isn't the right organization for me to join. And, over the last couple of years since the pandemic, we've seen a rise, massive rise in the number of people reneging on offers before day one, certainly in roles where, it's paid by the hour, and they're likely to look elsewhere for, 20p, 30p more. They're not as loyal as they used to be. So if you're failing them at that first step, then you're missing a trick, really, I think.
And actually, think about the time and effort that can be put into the employer branding content, the and recruitment marketing content and experience there. It's you don't really want people to feel like it's totally changed as soon as that person applies.
Absolutely, yeah, because we've worked in the employer branding industry now for years, you and I, Chris, and we know how much time and money organizations invest in creating that fantastic experience, in a great candidate experience full of immersive content and, positive touch points at every step. And I think onboarding still feels to be that point, where many companies drop the ball. And I think in some ways that's because it's often not owned by a particular department. So, it's somebody else's problem, I think, often, and the only person, or sorry, the only teams that are really needing something done are the compliance elements. And that's really never going to win the hearts of minds of a new employee. is here's your wad of forms to sign. We'll see you on day one. It just doesn't cut the mustard anymore. And I think most organisations understand that, but as I say, it's onboarding where they just seem to drop the ball, definitely.
Have you seen kind of what's your view on the negative impacts that have come from bad onboarding experiences?
So, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, we've just mentioned people reneging on offers before day one. That's your first bad impact. It's someone just goes, do you know what? This isn't the company for me. And it almost gets worse if they've had a great experience up to that point. There's that old joke about, up until this point we were pitching to you, now you're a client. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's like, basically, we've been selling you a role, we want to get you on board, and now you're getting to find out what we really like as an organization. And if you drop the ball at that first hurdle, at that point when most people are going to be at their most engaged at any point, they want to find out more about the organization, they want to learn more so they can be successful and productive over their first few weeks. This person wants to be onboarded well, pre-boarded well, and yet at that first step, then if you're doing a really bad job, then I think they're going to drop out, especially if they're a successful person and they're going to have a big counter offer. So beyond that, though, then you've got to look at, I guess, what are the main benefits of a great onboarding experience. So you've got helping someone be embedded into your culture, feel like part of the organization before day one. You've got effectively give them knowledge and information they need to be more productive in their role. I mean, how many times have you joined an organization in your past, Chris, where even though you're a hugely experienced person, over the first few weeks you kind of feel a bit like a novice.
Oh
You're
yeah,
not on
even
any
where
big.
yeah,
Sorry,
even
go on,
the
yeah.
like the photocopier. It's like how'd you get into the photocopier? All those little things, isn't it, as well? Which is
Yeah,
it can be extremely frustrating.
it is, yeah, and I think that's the thing. You join a new company. There's all the little housekeeping things which are always stressful, and you always feel silly about asking because you know everyone's busy. You don't want to ask about this or that. But then I think there's also the other things about you need to get under the skin of the company and understand how it does business, how it works, how you approach certain people, how you build relationships internally, all those kind of things. And again, I think all of these things you can start before day one. You can ultimately give people the knowledge, information, and the type of experience to support all that. And it's we're not talking about um, expecting them to spend days and days and days, while they're working out their previous position and wait for yours. But there's lots you can be doing to making that experience much more easy, reducing anxiety and helping them plan for what's going to be a massively exciting career with you as an organization.
It's very true. It's and I think about kind of things that employers can do in terms of the content that they're creating. Which goes far beyond just the kind of messaging. Saying we're this is a great job and this is a great organization to do that job. That giving that people there's something I like to focus a lot, which is kind of give give future talent who may be applying or will end up joining in X number of days, weeks, or months time. That real feel about what it's like to work with other people. That thing about getting future colleague content sorted out. And I'm not even talking about thought leadership here because I hate that term because it just suggests that's just for the top brass and the C-suite to talk about important stuff because they are thought leaders. It's opinion, and that thing about opinion is really, really important. And actually, if someone can listen to that, they get the swagger, they get the vibe of the individuals they end up working with. And I think it's that kind of content I think is really, really important. So long as it fits in a nice kind of process, really, from getting someone to apply and on board.
Absolutely, yeah, and we're big believers in that. Yeah, employee generated content. And often an organization or many organizations, let's say these days, are doing more employee generated content. That they're pushing more of that out because it is more authentic, it's more real, and people buy people. As you say, you can see yourself working with this individual. And one really good tip I would say is if you are producing content like that, it's not a big step to add a couple more questions in there, which are focused on, well, actually, this content is going to be sent out to a new hire who's going through other onboarding to help them get a feel for the organization. Maybe one we always suggest is, what's your best top tip for someone in week one? It's easy to answer for someone who's recently joined the organization or someone who's been there a while, and it's easy then just to chonk a load of videos together. You've got a lovely 3-minute video, and then at the end of onboarding, 3 months later, you ask the next cohort of people to send in their top tips, and it just starts to give you a cycle of lovely updated content, just like you would do for any content marketing, but it's just focused at enhancing that new hires onboarding experience ultimately.
100%. I think you're right. It doesn't it's just about thinking about setting out the questions in the right way, and actually even treating potential candidates as those onboarding grade
Mm.
you know candidates, and trying to think about, because that trying to think about why why is onboarding kind of seen as often being seen as the poor cousin. Is it because of, I mean, spoke to uh, Ben and Nick, uh, both ex IBM now actually, but they were in the global talent marketing team, and Nick was talking to Matt Alder about ROI, and Nick was at the Recfest talking about true ROI. And there's sometimes a thing about this focus on getting the applications in and processing people through, rather than thinking about not just getting the right candidates in, but those candidates who, maybe the measure's wrong. Maybe it's actually, the measure should be, well, we're going to have candidates that are actually going to stay here for at least X number of months or years, depending on the role, or that they can do this by the time they're this amount of time in an organization. So rather than just more kind of front end metrics, looking at something a bit deeper and something a bit closer to the bottom line.
I think so, yeah, and I think it's interesting. We're often approached to work, whether that's onboarding consultancy, whether that's new clients are interested in Eli. We're often approached because the client has identified a challenge. They've identified that they're potentially dropping the ball for the onboarding phase, let's say, of that new employee's life cycle. But they often come to us and say, right, we want to create a really engaging experience. But we then have to drill down, because a really engaging experience is absolutely what we do. But underneath that is the ROI. It's like, what is that experience then delivering for you as a business? And that's really critical, because even if the goal of the HRD or the talent attraction team or whoever is effectively running this project is to create the best experience, underneath that, from a finance perspective, from a business results perspective, you want to be thinking about, well, actually, it's going to improve retention. So early retention is going to be better. Productivity, as we've already discussed, is going to be better. People are going to hit the ground running better. Their teams are therefore going to be more productive. All that kind of stuff. And other things, obviously, like positive effects on your employer brand. People just waxing lyrical about that fantastic experience that they've got. And we've got many, many, many examples of where just small changes, creating a consistently great experience. I mean, you don't need to add on an award-winning technology product. Just starting with a creative, consistent experience, which is delivered time in, time out, and with certain steps happening, and suddenly people are being onboarded in a way which is delivering proper ROI. And I think that I tend to believe that there's still this thinking, certainly from many areas of bigger organizations, that they think onboarding's a bit fluffy, that it's a bit of a nice to have. And hand on heart, how many ROI sessions we've had with our clients where it's like, wow, cutting, retention, improving retention by upwards of 20% after 16 months and stuff like that. And millions of pounds of savings being calculated, and, productivity of 98% of people saying that they felt more productive in week one and were delivering. But, all these kind of things where we're moving away from fluffy, as I'm concerned. We're delivering real business benefits. And I think the more people realize that, I think the more people will see that a little bit of time spent on pre-boarding and onboarding, making sure you've got that consistently great process is imperative to a successful business these days, I think.
Given that, part of your business is technology focused, is technology business. It would be easy just to go, well, the technology itself, the software is the silver bullet, but actually there's a whole lot of wider context to make sure great technology itself is then not only rolled out in the right way, but embedded in the organization the right way. But actually, yeah, it does actually have an impact. It's always about trying to solve problems rather than just doing something for the sake of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing we'll always say. Basically, is it's technology is the enabler. It's effectively the larger you are as an organization, the more people you are hiring. Obviously, there comes a point when technology is going to enable you to do things better, more creatively, more immersively. All that kind of stuff. But it's not, as you say, it's not the golden bullet. You don't just plug a system in and everything is solved. You've ultimately got to embed it into the organization. You've got to make sure that people understand how they're using it. And a big area for us is line manager ownership. So it's, people who really should be taking ownership of the onboarding experience for their new hires. It's about upskilling them. It's about ensuring they know what great onboarding is. It's about them knowing what they should be doing at what point in that onboarding journey, before day one and after day one. And then, for many of our clients, it's also about just nudging them at the right moment, because we're all busy people. We all forget occasionally to put that catch up in 30 days after someone started. So this is where technology becomes the enabler. But getting the process in, defining that process and what it is for your organization is something all organizations can do right now. It's about looking what you have in place now, gathering some data. I mean, that's another big enabler, certainly, understanding where you are, and then starting to define what that new consistent experience is, and how you want to support the new hire over the first 90 days, that kind of thing. And then who's playing the role at what point. And certainly the line manager is a big one. A lot of organizations also use buddies or mentors, to support and obviously take a bit of weight off the line manager, and it doesn't need to be complicated. We're not talking about 100 steps here. In fact, we'd err towards under 10 if you can, but it's about key touch points in that onboarding timeline and those moments, where I always talk about smile moments. It's that moment where a new hire, it's just going to make them smile to get this. Whether that's a phone call from the line manager from before day one, or maybe that's lunch with a buddy or mentor, or on day one. Just little things which make them smile, and ultimately they're not thinking about, oh, have I made the right decision? They know it, and that's what onboarding can do. And rather than thinking about worrying about that first month, they're actually already thinking about the next 3 months or 6 months or 12 months and where they're going to go with you. And I think that's really key.
Yeah, and it's something actually I like what you say, because it's something that we touch on quite often on the podcast, is those thing about those kind of small things you can do just to get started and kind of head in the right direction. I think either there's a situation where it's onboarding isn't seen as being an important thing to focus on, or actually it is seen as being really important and therefore too big to kind of scale, to try and get control over. But those little simple things that can be done, that can just like move things in the right direction, I think is really nice. Otherwise, especially if maybe teams are small and resources tight and everything, that it's just push the dial a little bit to then get to a stage when you can go bigger on things.
I think that you're right. I think onboarding often suffers from the fact that there are multiple different teams involved in the thing. When you really look or break it down, you certainly would have IT at some part involved. Finance, compliance, learning and development, talent attraction are probably involved a little bit, HR especially. And bringing these disparate teams together and get them to work towards one vision is often where we start, really. But if you get that buy-in from those different teams. If you get to agree on a vision, and then, as I say, go back to this, what is our process then? How does it work? Then you initially you're not even going to need that technology, especially if you're a smaller organization. But you might need a checklist of tasks that each individual who plays a part has to do. You might need this journey, which everyone has the map and knows what's going on between, before day one and after day one. And then there might be existing technologies that can support you with that. Many companies these days have, electronic forms and e-signature stuff, that kind of stuff, help streamline those processes. On day one, many organizations now have LMS systems or internal intranets, that kind of thing, which can play a part. And, before day one, I've seen organizations, have closed LinkedIn groups and other things like that. So just because you might be a small organization and a dedicated experience-led onboarding technology is one step too far at the moment, doesn't mean there's a lot of tools. Still a lot of tools out there to support you in delivering that great experience still, I think. It doesn't all have to be digital.
Yeah, lovely. No, yeah, gotcha, absolutely. I think when you're talking about often the onboarding piece is like sits within or is partly owned by lots of different parts of the business. Let's talk a bit more about kind of any kind of advice on how to to get these people together. I mean, what would your advice be? Because someone's going, I really need to, kind of look at the onboarding, how we approach onboarding. But I've got like probably maybe there's 5 teams and they've all got like 5 people in those teams. So I've got to get like 25 plus, people involved in something.
And they've all got their own teams, and they've probably all got their own objectives as well when it comes to onboarding. And I think that's key. So I think the first place I would start, before you even start dragging all these people in, is let's find out where you are now. Where does onboarding sit? So start tracking data, onboarding related data, I would say. The kind of MI you should be able to get on your organization, just in terms of things we've already discussed, sort of, retention, early retention, that kind of thing, maybe drop out before day one, those kind of bits and pieces. But also I'd look at introducing, so either pulse surveys along your onboarding timeline, or just a couple of onboarding surveys that go out maybe on week one, month one, something like that, and asking specific questions about the experience and the different parts. So if you've got, a question about how was filling in the forms or this or that, how was, so you can start to measure where your pain points are and where your challenges are, but also where your successes are, and often there's some big successes that people find about that have nothing, they don't even know about them until they've started to gather that data. I think once you've got that in place for a few months, then it is much easier to bring a person from each of the different groups who you want to be part of creating this new experience in, because you've got the data. You can actually talk to them and say, look, I've been doing this research for the last few months. These are where I think the pain points are, and I'm looking towards defining a new onboarding experience. And I want your support. I want you to help me do it. And I think early buy-in is so key. It's like, look, I'm not trying to do it behind your back. What I want is your support in order to deliver this. And I think IT is always a huge one, because whatever you do, it's going to involve IT. But then other areas of the business that need to involve and indeed be involved. And indeed, as you get closer and closer, I always find it also helps to define a vision together as well. So like you might do for any other sort of big project you're doing internally, but something that you can all agree on, one or two sentences, and that kind of becomes the overall objective. And when you're defining your experience, you can start going, well, does it help us achieve our vision? Will this help us achieve it? And using it almost as a ruler to make sure that everything you're doing is going to achieve that main objective. But yeah, early buy-in, data, all that kind of stuff. And I think once you've got those people on board, then working together to deliver excellence, really.
I think that's really nice because you've got something there which is clear direction, and that's what strategy is, isn't it? It's just like a hype, and it can be a hypothesis as well. That's what strategy is. Like, kind of, like, this is the direction we want to go in. We know that might adjust, but at least there's something that people can kind of latch onto. And then I like what you say about the data, because then what you can do is you can show to people the positives and go, look, actually, you guys are part of this, contributing to this. But then also, well, also these are the problems that you guys are part of. The solution of making this better. So yeah, I think that's really nice.
Yeah, and I think at some point someone's going to turn around and go, well, this is going to have a price tag. Whether it's just resource and people time, whether it's you find you do need new technology to support, and that's where again the data is going to help, because if you can point and say, well, actually, 35% of our new hires are leaving within 6 months, something like that, suddenly like, what? It's pretty easy to calculate how much that's costing the business, and then suddenly it's a different conversation. It's like, well, this becomes business imperative. We need to reduce attrition over the first 3-6 months of employment, and a fantastic onboarding experience is going to achieve that. And your pain points as well. You know why people are going to be dropping out. You've got your exit interviews, and it's telling you what the reasons are. All of this kind of data comes together, and then when you're having to put a business case together, as we all do these days for anything that's got a sizable investment, then you've got all the information there that's going to hopefully float the boat of the FCO, basically, yeah, CFO. Mm.
And there's that psychological cost as well, isn't there? Because yeah, go back to the thing about pressure to hire, but in a certain period of time to hire, time to hire, because there are managers who need places filled. Yes, there's the initial thing of great, we found somebody, but the impact on esteem and impact on morale, especially for the hiring managers and the leaders, with they got to go back to the drawing board, is like massive. Now that's less easy to show in terms of cost, but that's no less, I think, no less important to consider as the motivation of the people around you, and that can easily trickle into a lot more negativity, can't it? If the onboarding isn't right.
I think ultimately it is harder to calculate that overall cost of, right, you've got to go back, you've got to reattract, you've got to reassess, you've got to retrain, you've got this person, and you've got to get them up to speed. While they're not there, the rest of the team is less productive. When they're coming back on for the second time, the line managers can't produce much. It's all these different things that come into it. But I guess we've focused a lot on a lot of almost like the negatives, or the what is a bad onboarding. But obviously the fun bit for me, certainly being creative director here, is actually creating this fantastic experience as well. So it's this shouldn't really be for me, but it shouldn't, though the business benefits can be about reducing early attrition, all this kind of stuff. It's actually that creating that highly engaging and an immersive experience, I think, where I get really excited. It's about helping an organization get hundreds and hundreds of messages back about the great experience that they've had. Individuals have had feedback, from HRDs and even NDs and CEOs saying, "Wow, the experience we have put together here is delivering fantastically engaged, more productive people," and that's where we can have a lot of fun. And that's obviously where all this great content, all these great social integration, and helping people get through all that kind of stuff is where it gets really exciting for me, I think.
I kind of vouch for that in terms of, when I look at the awards you guys have won, and the feedback that people have given off, by looking at those awards, and it's really nice to see the positivity that comes through, and like really is like really really helping a lot of people, um not only enjoy their job more, but have a business that knows more about its employees, and has employees that are more bought into the overall purpose of the organization, the values, etc. And I suppose ultimately, from a commercial perspective, that all means that they're going to be delivering on the bottom line more. But I'll stop gassing on about that. But let's spend a bit of time just talking about Eli. Then we've not really spoken much about that so far.
Well, that's very kind of you. Yeah, so well, I mean, we've been lucky enough to pick up more than a few awards for Eli. over the last few years. I think most notably we've picked up 2 RAD awards over the last 2 years, back to back, and also 2 Tiara awards for best onboarding solution as well. So and an RMA and an in-house recruitment award, and I won't go on. I think what's really good for us is ultimately, beyond the awards for technology, the RADs and the in-house recruitment awards and the RMAs, we're winning those for employee engagement and internal comms, and it's about the experience we're delivering. Right back to what we said a moment ago, technology is the enabler, but that's not the whole experience. And what we pride ourselves on really is getting in with a client, understanding their objectives, and then we sit down together and we help them define the perfect experience, their organization. And that's where, our knowledge and experience as a team really, really, really works, because we understand how our system works and what it can do. And then we're ensuring that it's delivering against those clients' objectives. And engagement is obviously one of them. It's driving that fantastic engagement between the new hire and the new organization. And that's what Eli's good at. It uses a user's profile to create a fully personalized website around that new hire. So they log on, it's talked to by name, it's filled with content which is, related to their role, their location, the department they're working in. It's connecting with them with the right people within their organization. It's giving them the learning materials they need to be productive in their role early on, and ultimately it's supporting their line manager as well, so that they know what good looks like, what their role in that experience is as well. So, as I say, Eli's enabling all this, but the exciting bits for me is when we get to put together all this really engaging content. It's the employee generated videos that we're getting in and updating. It's the social wall that Eli has, which has got people chatting and coming together and really doing our work for us, a place where they're engaging. And when you roll all this into one and you start to see the MI, Eli's MI dashboard, and how engaged people are and how often they're on the system, you can truly see it working in real time. So professional hires, many of our clients are pushing upwards of 13, 14 times people are coming back to the onboarding portal. They're on there for nearly 10 minutes each time. I'd like to see a careers website that has got this kind of engagement. I'd be a little bit shocked about it. And then if you look at emerging talent, so graduates, interns, apprentices, that kind of stuff, we're seeing clients have them coming back over 100 times before day one. They're on it. They're being part of a community. They're learning, how the organization works. But we're also building that sense of belonging. We're building connections which are going to help them, launch their career and set them up for success, really. And that's really, really rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and if anyone wants to find out more about Eli, then we'll drop a link in and take a look. And Noel, you're definitely on LinkedIn as Noel Thomas.
Last time I checked, yes, I am. Please do, please do connect if you'd like to have a chat about onboarding or anything else, really. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot. Good chat. Really appreciate it. Have a good day. Yeah.
Awesome. Love to be part of it, Chris. Yeah, take care.